And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Hello, everybody. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to a very special episode number 341 of This Old Marketing for Content Marketing World Week 2022. And with me, as always, my good friend, my colleague, and I think probably the guy who's most excited to get a Disney Prime membership, Mr. Joe Polizzi.
I'm in. Oh, I'm in. I'm getting all the primes. Oh, yeah. I think. What do you think about that? Do you think that the whole Disney Prime thing is just it just makes perfect sense with their overall strategy?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been talking about it forever, right? But I think if I'm Amazon, I'm a little annoyed that it seems to be. Well, maybe I'm not annoyed. I don't know. If I'm Amazon, it's like, really?
Did you have to go there? Yeah.
Right. Has Prime now become the Kleenex or the Xerox machine? The sort of, I can't remember what those things are called, but where the brand becomes the name of the thing. Right, you Google things now, right? Google becomes a verb. Now Prime becomes the quintessentially, idea for the subscription-based everything, right? So, I don't think they'll call it Disney Prime, because Disney's not like that. But I think it's as we've been talking about, it's a brilliant strategy.
So you have Amazon Prime, you have when Disney came out with it. I know it's not a Disney product, but I was thinking Disney Optimus Prime is really what it needs to be because that makes perfect sense. But you have Apple, but Apple's program, which is, I don't know if you've looked at it, is really impressive. Apple One, where you have all 7 subscriptions in one. That is fascinating to me because when you look at everything, you get the music and you get the storage and you get the phone support, you get all the stuff. It looks like a deal. I mean, it really does.
It is a deal. Yeah, no, I've got it now for Elizabeth and I. And it's just, it's a great, and you get Apple TV, you get, the storage, you get music, you get, there's a whole
the ultimate loyalty,
bunch of stuff.
The ultimate loyalty membership program is really
and it does save you money. I mean, look, I know that's relative because what should things cost, right? But given how you would buy those things a la carte, it makes every sense in the world to buy this kind of program.
It's
especially if you're all in on a brand, right? You're all in on a brand like Amazon or Apple or Disney. There's no there's no question. I do the same thing with Google's got a similar kind of thing with their family plan for YouTube Premium plus storage plus a few things. So you can do that as well.
I think the One and the Prime is overused. I think we should see the Deuce. Like, why not go to 2? The Disney Deuce.
Would the tagline be "Drop the Deuce"? Yeah. Oh no! I just got to be 17 years old.
Oh my
again.
God! But right, it's kind of like in it's kind of like in volleyball where they had ESPN the Ocho. Like, come up with something fun. Yeah. The Deuce.
The Ocho is back, by the way. ESPN Ocho is back.
Is it? Well, it really wasn't a thing, and then. It really wasn't.
It was a thing.
Wait,
it absolutely is.
They actually created ESPN 8.
Yes,
they did it. Well, it was not volleyball. It's dodgeball. It was in the movie Dodgeball. Was ESPN Ocho? That was the whole Jason Bateman.
That's right,
Mr. Brady. I forgot the name of the actor who played him. He just passed away, didn't he?
ESPN 8. The Ocho is back. It happened. It happened earlier this month, actually. Coincidentally,
is back from what?
Actually, it was month, I should say.
When did ESPN 8 come out in the first place? Because it was made up for
2020 during the pandemic.
Oh, got it.
And then they they killed it. They let it go, and then they brought it back. ESPN. What they do is they just rebrand ESPN too. It's not like they launched. It's not like they have 7 other, networks. But they just take ESPN two and they rebrand it as ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Well, I think that the obscureness of the sports, I think, is what counts. Like if they have, where I could see cornhole tournaments.
Would you like to hear the schedule?
Yeah.
Would you like to hear the current schedule of the ESPN Ocho? So you have the 2022 Corgi races, which already has me, and I can't believe I haven't seen that yet. Then you have the evolution of cliff diving. Then you have the Golden Tee World Championship, the story of spike ball. Then you have the pickleball national championships. Then you have the Corona belt sander races. Oh my gosh,
this sounds
great.
perfect. I bet you it's going to be a big hit.
Yeah,
it's absolutely.
Yeah,
because
and then you've got the 2021 World Air Hockey Championships, which I'm assuming is a rerun.
Especially, it's especially good for bars or taverns or saloons, if you will, because you never know what sport you should put on.
That's true.
If you're not allegiant to a particular sports franchise, you're like, what do we play? We got to play the Ocho because we got all kinds of crazy stuff on there going on.
We got to play the Ocho. That's right.
We got squirrel races and whatever else they do. Raccoon ball. I don't know what else.
Raccoon ball. Well, speaking of sports predictions, as we record this prior to Content Marketing World, and both of us, well, me making my way to Cleveland, and you, of course, making your way down the freeway.
10 minutes down the freeway. Yes.
Yeah. Our teams have not played yet. So what are your predictions for the Browns? I know everybody's aware of all the stuff going on, but what is your predictions for the actual game of football?
So, for some reason, I just want to answer pain. I predict pain. And then, you know what? You're always right.
Yeah.
You're always
Clever Lang.
You're always right. Pain. That's it. Yeah. Okay, so just to get everybody up to speed, Deshaun Watson,
I pity the fool.
the presumed starting quarterback at the beginning of whatever preseason is out for the first 11 games, suspended by the NFL.
That's right.
So our starting quarterback is Jacoby Brissett, which has always been a very good game manager, I would say, 500-ish quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's who we're going to have. I'm under the assumption that they're going to focus on the running game. They've got 2 of the best running backs in the league, and they're very, very deep at running back, even if somebody gets injured. So I'm under the assumption it's going to be a run game, but whatever. The defense is solid, should be solid. I think that up to the 11th game, you're going to see us be 6-5. And I think we're 6-5 going into game 12. So when Deshaun comes back, and then we have 6 games remaining after that, correct? So then I think that we end up 8-9.
Oh, all right. You don't think he's going to be all that?
Look, I don't know how to say this, Robert, but first of all, Deshaun Watson is an incredible quarterback. I'm not going to talk about his character or anything like that. What I feel, this is just bad mojo. This is just, the whole thing feels wrong. The season feels wrong. I think that if you want to call Cleveland a cursed sports city or whatever you want to call, I think that this just adds to it. From the curse of Rocky Calavito with the Cleveland Indians back in the day to today, it was just a bad choice. They've got some amazing players on the team, and the schedule actually isn't all that incredibly hard if you really look at it. I think the problem is it's just the front office made some bad choices, and we're going to have to pay for it this year. I don't know what's going to happen next year. I just don't see us making the playoffs this year. So,
okay,
there you go. And by the way, saying that hurts. I already have chest pain just talking about the way I did.
Oh, no. Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good because we've been the season ticket holders for 15 plus years or whatever the case is since they came back. And yeah, I'm not feeling good about it, but I can't honestly say that I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. So
Yeah.
so there you go.
I would have to agree with you there, I think.
But the thing is that their defense, the last I think 9 games of the year, top 5 defense in the league. Of course, you have this amazing running game, and they were a great team last year, except that Baker kept throwing it to the wrong team. And by the way, because he was hurt, he should not have been playing, in my opinion.
Yeah, he should not have been playing. Now,
my prediction for Baker Mayfield, I think Baker Mayfield has a chance to go to the Pro Bowl this year.
I think he has a look. He doesn't have a great team around him there in Carolina, but he definitely has they've got a solid running game, and we'll see. I think you're right. Here's what I'll predict for him, which is it's the same thing I'm going to predict for my Cowboys, which is it will be one extreme or the other. In other words, it won't be right down the middle. It'll either be awful or he'll be fantastic. He'll have an all-pro year. Same with my Cowboys. I think the Cowboys right now are such a question mark. They're either going to have a spectacular year like they did last year, or it's going to be a dumpster fire. So I don't think it goes right down.
Well, okay, I see what you did there. You kind of hedged your bet, but
yeah, a little bit.
I would like to hear. So I gave you a record. I gave you a record of 8-9 for the Browns. What is the record? Because we'll come back to this, of course, like we always do, so we can show that how wrong we are on almost every subject. So what is the record going to be for the Dallas Cowboys?
I'm always a glasses half full kind of guy, so I'm going 11-6.
Oh my goodness, that's obviously playoff material.
Yeah.
Are you? So they make the playoffs at 11-6. Any prediction after that?
No, absolutely not. 0. No, not even a chance. Yeah, not even a chance.
Oh shoot. Okay. Well, good. I hope
a little bit.
I hope
something special here with this show, which is to talk a little bit about content marketing world, because this week obviously we're doing this a little bit of in advance and in advance because we'll both be in Cleveland. Giving our various talks and all of that. So, I would love for us to talk a little bit about our predictions for content marketing world, but then I want to hear what you're going to talk about. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about what I'm going to talk about and let's talk about content marketing world since we're both going to be there next week.
Always a special week. For both of us, but I'll speak for myself. It's been the first Content Marketing World was September of 2011, and here it is, still going strong. This is the 12th year. Is this the 12th? This is the 12th.
Yes, this is 12.
Because the 10th was the pandemic, the initial pandemic year, 2020.
Sadly, yes. Yeah.
Which we all did online, and then we all came back and had a smaller, more cozier event last year, as people were still a little bit timid, and of course we're still going through all that. And now it seems like we're almost, fingers crossed. We feel like we're getting out of it. I know a lot more. Of course, we got international folks coming this year, which we didn't have last year.
Didn't have that at all.
So
and everybody's. It seems like it's going to be like a huge homecoming because so many people, so many of the speakers who couldn't come for various reasons. To 2021 because of still travel bans and some timidness over the going to physical events and all those things. It seems like some of these people are going to be people I haven't seen in 3 years. It's amazing.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny because it seems like too with all of our speaker friends now is sort of that. Hey, I haven't been on an international flight for 3 years. That's all happening. Like I don't know when your next one is, but. I'm going, my first international flight will be in November. I got one November, December. So it seems like it's all starting to happen again. Anyways, I'm very excited about seeing a bunch of people and getting this thing going again. And, I guess the question is, I want to hear about what you're going to say, but it seems like every time you bring up the subject, you talk about how content, we got our wish. We got a seat at the table. It is important to marketing. And what now? Is that what you're going to talk about in your opening? Because you have an opening keynote, And I'm the
I do.
I'm the opening
For
keynote
the
on
first time in
Thursday.
many
You're
years,
on Wednesday,
actually, yeah.
right? So
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. I'll open up the show, and I actually reserved myself a little bit of time this year because I actually did have something that I wanted to talk about. Because the last couple of years, I have basically come out, just opened up the show, dressed up in so. I do have a silly costume, which I will be wearing.
Oh, jeez.
But I've just opened up the show. But this year, I do actually have something to talk about. And yeah, I guess the overall, if I had to put a theme to it, it is. So what we have seen over the last few years is that, content has become more important, and that's an easy no duh statement. But what I mean by that is that the interesting thing is that even post pandemic, right? The theme of the research, for example, from CMI's research coming out of the pandemic was and I wrote the introduction to the research, and my theme was the sleeping giant awakens. In other words, because of the disruptions that we saw based on the pandemic, and a lot of that has to do with digital transformation, and a lot of that has to do with, that the physical experiences are no longer as plentiful, right? We just we value our time now, whether we go shopping or whether we go visit clients in person, all those things are just not happening like they used to. And so digital and content have become proxies for everything. And so the pressure on content practitioners has become more pronounced. And that just means marketing, generally speaking, because marketing is now not only required to create these wonderful owned editorial thought leadership, content marketing experiences, but holy smokers, now they have to create experiences everywhere to replace what we used to do physically. And so what we have seen is that content and content marketing and marketing are merging, right? And to your point, it was something you and I talked about, 10 years ago when we launched the first Content Marketing World. We were like, at some point, this just merges into marketing, right? Content marketing just becomes one of the best practices of marketing. And, we used to always say, we don't care really if the term doesn't work, but the practice is what's really important. And what I'm seeing is that the term is still there. Everybody understands that it is a separate kind of approach, but the classic content marketing person is now being saddled with a lot more, including technology, first-party data, strategy, marketing content, advertising, promote. They have to be well-rounded marketers. They can't just be anymore, storytellers or editorial specialists or those kinds of things. Now, the tension there, and this is where I'm going to focus my talk, is that businesses haven't yet evolved into that, right? What we're doing is that we're continuing down the same road of thinking of content as the way that we've always thought of it, which is sort of this magic black box that, strewn throughout the company, and you just sort of put ideas in and magically content comes out of it somehow. There's people do it, right? As I've said many, many times, content is kind of everybody's job and nobody's strategy. And that's where we're seeing the big tension now is that, the other research that I'll call up in my keynote is the career and salary survey that we did this year, which is just amazing research. I could not be more proud of the research team for putting this together because it's really the best research I've seen on current salaries, job happiness, job satisfaction, and how, we're looking at content marketing and content as a career. And the big headline is we're not. There is no career path. The wonderful, the interesting research here is that, 60% to 70% of content marketers are happy in their job. However, 60 to 70% also are ready for a new job. And the reason that they're ready for a new job is because they either A, don't see a career path in their current company, they do see a career path, but it's not in the company they're in, or C, they're unsure of where they're going, and basically they feel like they have to go into sales or marketing or PR or something like that and get out of content. So businesses have not yet set up any sort of structure for content to exist in the business. And so basically content marketers and content strategists are just jumping from job to job to job to company to company to company and, working their way around the different businesses. And so the call to action for me, the sort of end of my keynote, is that this is our opportunity to look at things in a new way, to look at content strategy, content marketing, and marketing as a business strategy, which is something you and I have talked about for, 8 years, 9 years. We talked about it in Killing Marketing, that this was it's now a business. It's not just a nice marketing strategy, it's a business strategy. 2, that you have to create just like you do with legal or accounting or, any other function in the business, you have to create a structure and a career ladder and all those things for it. And see that it is now time for us as practitioners to take on the idea of first-party data, audience building, and making sure that those experiences that we're creating are connected in a way that helps us do things in the new modern way. As I say very pointedly, what? First-party data, privacy, all that stuff, IT has had their time. Digital marketing has had their time. Neither of them have solved this. We have to be the ones to solve it. The content strategists, the content marketers have to be the ones to solve this because it's not getting solved otherwise. It's not a technology issue. It is not a legal issue. It is a content issue. And we can be the ones to solve this. So all of that stuff is coming together, and then I'm hopefully going to tee up everybody to sort of look at the rest of the presentations and say, through that lens, how can you walk away from content marketing world listing out the new things that you're going to do on Monday morning when you get back to the office?
And what are those new things going to be? Do you think?
It's going to be any one of those things, right? It could be new responsibilities, taking on actually the ability to create that career ladder, to look at technology and start taking responsibility for being, for the first party data access, for the, as I say in the keynote, if we're thinking, if like our biggest problem right now, if our biggest problem as a content marketer is, should we gate content, behind a paywall, or should we not gate content behind a paywall and put our, subscribers into a MailChimp database versus the Salesforce data? No, you're behind. You are woefully behind if that's your biggest problem, because you've got to get to a place where you're looking at the strategic aspect of an audience from the first time you meet them to the last time that you service them as one continuous journey. And if you're not there, then you need to get there. And so that's, so how do you do that? Start laying out a roadmap for getting strategic about your content approach.
Well, what I appreciated, you said this to me, I don't know, I think I was asking you maybe about my presentation or some other things we were working on, but I was talking about buy-in, and you were very adamant about the fact that most chief marketing officers or senior vice presidents of marketing or whoever's in charge of the content marketing bucket under them has bought in. They get it. Right. And they wonder why the content marketer hasn't done more with getting this whole strategy working. And like, hey, haven't we been working on this for 10 years and this is as far as we are? And I hadn't heard that from you before. And you were like, yeah, like we need to get our act together and stop, focusing on the smaller things, the tactical items, and really create a strategy.
That's exactly it, right? You go to, what's happening is that people are going to their bosses with business cases around, the idea that content marketing is a good idea, like this is, 2008 or 2009, and VPs, CMOs, CFOs, they're saying, yeah, fine, bought it, got it. You're bringing me the wrong answer to the wrong question, right? Which is, you're trying to build a case to say we should be doing better and more, more valuable content. I'm already bought in on that. What I want to know is, how are you organizing all of the content we're already creating, and how are you making it better? How are you making the operations and building the activities that we need to build to actually be able to do something? one of the examples that I bring up in my keynote is Salesforce. You look at Salesforce Plus, right, which is arguably the biggest content marketing launch in the last 5 years, right, of a company. Arguably going to go compete against CNN Plus. It's not going to compete against CNN Plus because CNN Plus is gone.
That didn't last very long. Yeah.
But by the way, an audience that big, it's got an audience as big as CNN Plus. Now that's a low bar with CNN Plus, but it's it's bigger now and it's B2B. But the point is that what kind of competitive advantage does Salesforce Plus give to Salesforce? It's not the brand of Salesforce. That's everywhere. That doesn't give it competitive advantage. The fact that it's Salesforce launching this, the competitive advantage isn't in the content. The content itself in Salesforce Plus is, it's everywhere, right? You can go listen to these podcasts, watch these podcasts, see these webinars. They basically just aggregate, stuff that's already available out there. It's not in the technology. The technology is well worn for what they're doing. So what is it that's giving them, or could give them, if they execute well, competitive advantage? It's the fact that they have created a strategy and a function of content at Salesforce that operates like a media company. In other words, they built in the structure, the team, the career ladder, the positions, the activities, the strategy, the infrastructure to actually make media an important thing. That's what makes a Salesforce Plus competitive, is that they know how to do it now. And that's where we have to be as smaller businesses. It's not about writing the smartest white paper or telling your boss that you can go create more valuable, TikTok videos. It's about how do you build an operational process that actually works to create content like a media company does. That's the competitive advantage, and that's the business case you have to be bringing to your boss.
It's so funny. So a lot of the things that you're bringing up are going to feed right. It's almost like we planned this, Robert, which we actually did.
Or that we talk every week.
But it's going to fit right in. So I'm glad you're going to lead off with that, because as I go into my presentation, so it's funny how it's tough every year. I mean, I've done 12 of these keynotes, and you're like, okay, I've got to say something new. What's going on? And I had an interview, I don't know what it was, a couple weeks ago. And somebody asked me what the most important thing was to, growing a e-newsletter list or something like that, or becoming a content entrepreneur. And I said, the most important thing over everything else is having the time to do it. Time.
That's right.
Time is the number one thing. And the interviewer sort of taken aback, like, time? I'm like, yeah, time. So basically my whole thing, I'm calling the presentation Slowing Time, but it's really about either, buying more time or creating or integrating strategies that lengthen your runway that no one else is going to try. So kind of thinking a little bit differently. And it got me thinking, I don't know if you know, but my son, my youngest, Adam, and I, we have conversations all the time about theoretical questions and what's this mean and what's that mean. And we'll talk for hours about this stuff. But the other day we were talking about making $1 million and what's the easiest way to get $1 million. And he was thinking about like jobs and doing things. And I said, it's easy. The easiest way to become a millionaire is having the time to do it. It's time. It's like, right. What are you talking about? I'm like, and I know this because I've talked about it in a lot of blog posts and I've talked about it on stage. But if you want to get to $1 million, it takes $14 per day for 35 years. You put $14 away at a regular S&P fund that's getting between 7.5% and 8.5% on average, and in 35 years, you're a millionaire. So it's not too dissimilar as to what we're talking about with content marketing strategies, because if somebody asks me what's the number one success factor for content marketing, it's time. It's having the time to do it. And what I'm going to go through is, go through the greatest case studies of our time. You look at Red Bull Media House. People don't realize that Red Bull Media House has been around for 17 years now. They started in 2005 as a magazine. It took them 2 years to go monthly. It took them 6 years to get to U.S. distribution. And now they're 17 years. A lot of time. Even our own, Content Marketing Institute. We've been around for 15 years. Took us 2 years to get to 10,000 subscribers. Took us 4 years to get to profitability. Look at somebody new. Look at somebody like Mr. Beast. People think, oh my God, Mr. Beast started doing YouTube videos and just out of the blue was successful. No, he wasn't. Started in 2012. It took him 3 years just to get a consistent topic on YouTube. And what's really amazing is in 2016, hit 30,000 subscribers on YouTube and then hit 1 million next year. Now net worth is over $100 million. So if you look at the research from the Tilt that I'll go through, it takes 25 months just for somebody to be a content entrepreneur and make a living at it. So over 2 years, and that's all you're doing full time. So okay, great. But then, you made some really good comments about where these content marketers want to go from a career standpoint. And I just took basic data. I might have to slide in some of the CMI data. But if you look at the average stay of an employee today in the US, it's about 4 years at a job. And if you look at mid-level marketing roles, it's about 3 years. And then, of course, we've talked about the chief marketing officer lifespan has been at 2 years for a long time. And that was confirmed recently again by the Wall Street Journal. So the problem is that we want to do all these amazing things. We want to build a wonderful group of loyal customers and communication experiences, but we don't have enough time to do that, even with a solid strategy. So that's the contention I'm making, Robert, is that you could have the best strategy in the world, but you don't have enough time to do it. Because you're going to leave or somebody's going to boot you.
That's the kind of thing that you need to think about, right? I mean, because, I told this to a client not too long ago. I said, who was they were going to start this new project, this new owned media platform for a strategic, all the good, checked all the good boxes, right? Strategic, online, digital magazine, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, now you have to realize that this is a bridge that you're going to build but never finish.
Yep.
And I said, you have to understand that how are you going to build this bridge in a way so that someone else can come in and finish the bridge and actually launch it and make it work? And they looked at me and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm going to make this like the great case study. And I said, no. I said, the highest chances are that 2 years into this, you will have built it and it will just be starting to get some traction, and you'll leave. You're going to go to another company. No, I'm not. I'm not going to another company. Oh, you might not, but the averages say that you will. The averages say that you're going to be, you're going to either find a better job, or that this job is going to become so unbearable that you can't stand it anymore, so you leave, or that life changes, or something's going to happen, because that's just the average marketing tenure of a marketing professional these days. You may buck that trend, but
probably not.
You need to build this in a way, like if you care about this, you need to build this in a way, document it, put it in the processes, build in the activities. Don't just build it as an art project. You need to build it so that it's institutionally sound, so that anybody could come in and finish it.
That's so true.
And that's just a different mindset. It's just a different mindset.
It's so true, because it's funny, because as you're talking, you're building the presentation for me, because I've got a slide that says now, and then I've got 6 things that you can do. And the end of the rainbow there is you're either fired, you're let go, or you leave voluntarily. And depending on how long you've been at a company, you can sort of think, hey, if I've been at this company for 2 years, you might have another 2 years left. But if you just are playing the odds, if you're just looking at what goes on, you're probably going to be gone. Or you can try, and then, or my contention is, you could try some of these crazy things that I think aren't so crazy. And I'll just quickly go through them. I want to get your take on them. But I got 6 things that I'm specifically going to share. We've talked a lot about them on the show, but the first one is obviously acquisitions. I think we've talked about it on the show. I think now is just the perfect time to create an acquisition strategy. And I go through the whole thing about growing up in publishing and growing up in the publishing world, business to business publishing world. It was about 2 things every year when we put our budgets together for the next year. It was about organic growth plus acquisitions. And content marketers have never been taught that. They've only been taught about organic growth and what are we going to do with our own IP, and they've never thought about, should I go out and acquire content brands? to help me with my strategy. Publishers do this. So if you look at a New York Times, they bought Wirecutter, they bought Wordle, which we just covered, they bought The Athletic, and they've had amazing financial results over the past couple of years, in large part because of these acquisitions. So I think that what I'm going to go through is that if you're just thinking all organic, you're missing out. And then a lot of people will go, okay, well, let's look at Red Bull Media House. Red Bull Media House is all organic. No, they're not. If you look at their properties, about half of their properties were bought. But people don't realize that. They just don't look and say, oh, Red Bull went out and bought all these Benvenuto Publishing and Service TV. They did Speed Week. Did they buy? Oh, yeah, they bought those. And then, of course, we talk about Aero Electronics, a Fortune 119 company, $34 billion company that they bought 50-plus brands and now have more electronics engineers as subscribers than any other media company in the world. And then, of course, you got HubSpot doing what they're doing with the Hustle and their creator program. And then even Content Marketing Institute. I mean, we bought Content Tech was a purchase property. Content Marketing Awards was a purchase property. So I'm going to go through the contention that if you're a content marketer, the number one skill you can understand for this year or get to really get your hands dirty with is understanding acquisitions. You really need to do that. And at the same time,
well, it's happening the other way around too. By the way, it's So I mean, one of the things I was just speaking at the Agora Pulse thing, and I was talking to agencies, and so Time Magazine, literally a week and a half ago, bought a small software company.
The Brandcast example, right? Yeah,
Brandcast, right? And so they bought Brandcast, which is of course, a small soft, it's like a Folion or a Ceros or a Uberflip, sort of microsite builder. But now Time Magazines, and they call it now Time Sites, is now competing with services, right? And let's not forget that T-Brand Studios, it started organically with like 2 or 3 or 4 people in the London office. But the way that T-Brand Studios from New York Times, that was an acquisition. They acquired an agency here in my hometown of Los Angeles. And that became the core agency services model for T-Brand Studios. And you've got Washington Post now with a enterprise level content management system, that competes with Sitecore and competes with Adobe AEM. And so this is happening the other way around, and the only notable agency that I've seen make an acquisition is Gary Vee's agency bought Pure Wow, which is a women's publication. So, it's like, this is happening everywhere. It's just happening in nooks and crannies, and most businesses are not paying attention to this, to your point. And it's I just literally had this conversation 2 weeks ago with a company I think I talked about this on the show last week or week before, where we talked about the idea of, the Brazilian company coming into the U.S. and talked to them about and said, hey, listen, why don't you just acquire a media company here instead of trying to hire people? It's like, and they were like, oh, yeah,
we could do that.
Great. We could totally do that.
Yeah. And at the same time, first of all, we talked about this in Killing Marketing, where we said it's just a perception that you think that Cisco systems and New York Times are different. The actual business model underlying when you look at content creation and distribution is the same. They're just monetizing it differently. But at some point, it's all going to be the same. And that's what we're starting to see, is that there's a media company inside every organization. And you're pulling all the levers now, not just a few content marketing levers. You're saying, I'm going to pull all the direct revenue levers, which gets me to the next point. Because I go into, acquisition, and I go through, here's an acquisition strategy, and here's why the opportunities are there for you right now. And then I'm like, you have to drive direct revenue. And of course, I love the example from Cleveland Clinic, and I talk about Cleveland Clinic Health Essentials and what the greatest part about that is, and they're doing amazing things, and they got 13 million people going to their website every month and all this kind of stuff. But the fact is they're break even, or even at this point, profitable. That division makes money. So you'll never get cut. Like if you're marketing and there's no cost aspect to it at all, and you're just throwing off cash, like you are good to go. Like if you look at Arrow's Electronics and all their brands, and you look at somebody like an EE Times, which is a publication of Arrow Electronics. They sell display, sponsored content, webinar sponsorships, events, e-newsletter sponsorships, podcast sponsorships. They do their own funded and paid research. They do book sales. They do training and paid courses, and they're throwing off millions. That's a marketing initiative as well. And it's a media company. So I'm talking about, look, you have low-hanging revenue fruit. I know it's weird to think about it, but you could launch your own event like HubSpot and Salesforce has done. You could launch your own podcast sponsorships. You could do your own awards programs like Content Marketing Institute has. You could have your own training. I think we just have to think differently that it's time to pull all the levers from a revenue standpoint.
Well, and that's what ties what you're talking about into what I'm talking about, because those levers, the immediate, when you have a conversation with someone, the immediate knee-jerk reaction is to say, yes, I can create content like Cleveland Clinic. I can create content like EE Times. I can create that. I know how to build, a website. I know how to build a landing page. I can build an event. I know what that content looks like. And so you think, therefore, I can duplicate that success because I know what that package looks like, and that's not what differentiates them. What differentiates them is that Cleveland Clinic took the time and the investment to invest in all of the activities that are needed to operate like a media company. In other words, they hired people that are specialists in, selling media. Yep. I mean, they actually have people who can actually sell advertising. They actually have people who are editorial backgrounds, who create editorial strategies. They actually have people who created the data and the science behind the, pulling all of that measurement out so that they could sell the media that they needed to sell to promote they basically built a business around this. They built an operation around this. And so if you look at somebody like the EE Times, that's an operation. They have activities going. They know what they're doing. They know how to do the thing. It's not just what the content looks like. It's how do you actually fit all those activities together to make it strategic. And that's what differentiates. And so that's the real difference, is like when you're saying pull all the levers, it's not pull all the levers to get, a bunch of content written. It's pulling all the levers to build the infrastructure and the operation so that you can actually pull the levers to create new content.
Absolutely true. Because the next thing I go into is really about the idea of redefining metrics. And that's when I go through in the revenue model that you and I talked about in Killing Marketing, where it's not just content marketing KPIs anymore. It's not just I need to sell more products or services or keep loyal customers or grow better customers. And those are all very, very important. But you have to look at, you've got 6 other ways that you need to generate. You can generate revenue, maybe more than that. And you're not thinking strategically about that right now. Once you build a loyal audience, there's ways to monetize in multiple ways. And by the way, it's not just you're not just extracting value from an audience when you do this. You're usually creating things that add to the loyalty and add to the closeness to the audience as well at the same time. Like I would make a case that Content Marketing Awards generates a lot of revenue and a lot of profit for CMI, but it also is another indicator of somebody signs up for an award, they're probably a more profitable customer as well. They come to Content Marketing World. They go to the webinars. They go to those kinds of things. So I go into those, like looking at the metrics. I go heavy duty into an email strategy, and it really is built upon what you and I covered a couple weeks ago about the most value, the largest sales of media companies recently have happened with email businesses. Industry Dive, and you look at Axios and look at Morning Brew. These are all email-driven businesses, and I make the case that most content marketers aren't taking their email seriously enough. And so we need to take that and integrate that into everything that we're doing. And so I talk about that, and then I go into 2 more, and we talked a little bit about the one, but I call it leasing space. But it's the idea that this new idea of an advertorial, or if you remember what an advertorial is in a print publication, where somebody's got a print magazine and I'm like, I'm going to buy 2 pages, but they're going to be editorial driven. So it's advertising, but it's editorial. And this is where I'm totally leaning off of other strategies, but Scott Galloway's Prof G strategy, where he has 4 different podcast feeds going on right now with his Prof G podcast. He's got one on markets. He's got one that's his newsletter. He's got the main Q&A feed, and then he's got an office hours podcast, all on the same channel. And
the same feed.
The same feed.
That's the real key there.
The same feed.
Right?
And
4 products. I heard George Hahn on the Pivot podcast talk to them as products, which I found fascinating. So he said Prof G has 4 products on one feed.
That's perfect. Yes, exactly. And I'm basically saying, look, you can do that with your own stuff, but you can also lease or rent space with a media company or partner with a creator using their feed. So this is what happens with most podcasts, and I talk about the research on this, but it's something horrible. Let me bring up this stat because you probably know this already, but of all the podcasts out there, according to Apple, only 26% have published one episode. And 26% have published only one episode. 37% have published 2 or fewer episodes. And 44%, a half,
I did not know
a
this.
half of all podcasts have 3 or fewer episodes. Do you believe that?
That is fascinating.
This is April 2021 data from Apple, courtesy of Amplify. And I'm just like, whoa.
Half of all podcasts have less than 3 episodes.
Yeah. 3 or fewer
amazing.
episodes.
3 or fewer,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you basically have a bunch of horrible content out there, just a bunch of stop projects. And I'm like, well, instead of doing that, we can go and we got a podcast idea. Great. Let's go rent space with a media company. Let's go do a partner project. Do what Galloway's doing with his other products, but you can leverage other people's feeds. And I'm fascinated by this concept to do that and really get partnerships going, because then you can move audience, or steal audience, if you will, from those feeds to your own email or your standalone feed. So instead of starting fresh, not getting any traction, which you probably won't if you look at the data, so you'd be like, okay, another dead podcast. Well, let's not even start there. But you're starting with a losing proposition. So I said, there's a better way to do it. So and then the last one, you'll get a kick out of this because this feeds in right with your idea that you started talking about. But my bonus idea is to leave your company. Is to get a running start somewhere else. And I go back to the Cleveland Clinic example. A lot of people never talk about this because we talk about Amanda Todorovich or Todorovich. Is it Todorovich? Amanda, I'm totally sorry. Is it? I'm going to get this right before I say it on stage. I think it's Todorovich. But Amanda has done a fantastic job with Cleveland Clinic. She came in 2012, and Scott Linebarger was the person who got it working from the ground, launched it as Health Hub, got the buy-in, really made this thing going, and it was a bunch of nothing. 12,000 visitors a month when Scott was going, and they were lucky enough to be able to bring somebody like Amanda in. And then so Scott did all the work, and then Amanda comes in and just takes it to the next level. So my whole contention is go and find something in a similar position. Go find a company that has bought in, and it's 3 years. It's about 3 years into their strategy, and that's what Cleveland Clinic was into about 3 years before Amanda came in, and then she's just blown it up in the last decade. But do the same thing. It's like, okay, you want to grow, and you talked about this a little while ago. You want to take your step up in your company. Maybe there's no career path for you. Well, there's examples out there that are at that point that Scott Linebarger had Cleveland Clinic Health Hub that became Health Essentials. Go and find that opportunity. And that's where, if you're tired and you don't know where to go in your own company, go find that example out there. So that's kind of what I'm talking about just thinking about the business strategy. You said it well. It's looking at the business strategy a little bit different outside of just content creation and distribution.
Yep.
So
that is exactly it. It is now time for us to recognize that this is and one of the ways that I finish, speaking about the whole privacy and first party data and trust and everything is, I come back to this, it's just a headline that haunts me. Not in a good way, it haunts me. It's the Edelman Trust Barometer this year, where they wrote that societal leadership is now a business function, and I love that headline, and it was basically the conclusion they came to after looking at this, because they looked at people's expectation now that businesses would communicate their values and beliefs and create that, societal leadership, because it's not coming from mainstream media. It's not coming from government. It's not coming from the church. It's not coming from nonprofits. It's not, people are now expecting businesses to begin to lead this. And, that is no longer, and my point there is that when you look at the data, and I may get these numbers slightly wrong because I don't have them quite memorized yet, but it's 58% of us will make a purchase based solely on the company's beliefs or values. 65%, I think it is, will make a employment decision about a company that we're going to go work for based on their values and beliefs, and 80% of us will make an investment decision about a company's values and beliefs. And so if there has ever been a time when content marketing has been more, in more need in any company, I can't think of it, right? It is now. And the way I sort of finish, as I say, content marketing right now in business, I used to say, very pointedly, of course, that it's an opportunity for brand differentiation and for, demand side marketing and for customer loyalty and all the wonderful things that we might enhance our marketing strategy with. Those days are gone. Content marketing is now a responsibility of every company. And if you're not doing it, you're being irresponsible.
Yeah.
And so to the business, because your customers, your investors, your employees expect it. And if you're not coordinating your communication in a way that delivers clarity on those values and those beliefs in your business, and I don't care how big you are, you're missing out. You're going to miss a big piece of what business strategy is these days.
And I would also say, if there's been anything helpful about what's happened during the pandemic, is you have executives that not only are open to these new ideas, they're asking for them.
Absolutely.
So this is our time. This is there's no excuses anymore. You can't say you're not going to get buy-in. You can't say that you don't have an executive team that's supportive of these things. They probably already are. And we have to get outside of our little content creation bubbles and look at the big picture and say, you can make a huge impact on the entire organization, as you've always said. I mean, this is a big organizational issue right now that you can come in and you can almost be a hero and say, look, this is going to solve a lot of our issues. A lot of our communication issues, a lot of our revenue issues can be solved by doing this. So,
yeah, and I'll tell you one quick story, because she's going to be at Content Marketing World. Jen Hovelsrud, who she's just amazing. She runs content. She's a year, 18 months into her job at Anthem Insurance. Anthem Insurance, one of the biggest, Blue Cross insurance companies on the planet. And Anthem Insurance did a complete rebrand in 2021. Completely rebranded, changed the name of the company, changed the name of everything. And because the newly appointed CEO of Anthem Insurance wanted to make her, she's an incredibly accomplished person, the CEO there. I mean, she served in the Obama administration, and she's just a very incredibly, and she's nearing the end of her career, and has stated very publicly that she wants to make a big impact before she retires. And so she wanted to sort of change the nature of what Anthem Insurance was all about as CEO, and so wanted to change the brand and really make an impact in terms of communicating values and communicating the sort of social impact that they are trying to have as a company. And that new brand was supposed to be representative of that. And Jen led the content charge on that, for all of that rebrand. And so the way that the content on the website looks, the way the content marketing looks, the thought leadership throughout all of their different areas that they cover, she's going to talk about that at Content Marketing World, but that's it, right? This CEO was in, like all in. And now it's not a question of being into the idea. The question is, how do you do it? Like, what are you going to bring me? What's the business case you'll bring me for how to get it done?
It's I didn't realize she was speaking. That's fantastic. So I'll have to make
she's
sure
wonderful.
I catch that one. And by the way, and I've got no skin in the game on this one, but if you did not make Content Marketing World as you're listening to this, you can get online access and listen to Robert and myself and all the other amazing speakers with the online version. You can go to contentmarketingworld.com and sign up for that. So just in case you happen to miss it.
Yeah, well, and I would also mention that, and this is lesson learned, I think, it's a little confusing because you actually have to go to the website, which talks through all the physical stuff, like the physical event. And when you hit register, like you're going to register for the event, then you have the opportunity to get to I had a lot of people email me and go, how come you're not doing a on-demand version this year? And I said, well, we are actually, but you have to go register and then choose the on-demand online event as your option.
Got it.
So
okay.
That's just a secret helpful tip.
Good to know. So by the time this will come out or Friday after Content Marketing World is over. So I'm assuming if they go to contentmarketingworld.com and they sign up, it should just go to the online, but I don't know. I'm not in charge of these things.
That's the way it's going to work.
Yes.
Yeah. I would. Yes. I believe that's the way it would work when you're coming afterwards.
Right? Well, awesome. Well, I'm also looking forward to getting together with you, and we'll have our a few drinks, maybe some tequila,
maybe a few, maybe a few or more. Yeah,
something like that.
Many drinks will be had.
And
yes.
Last year was great, but you're right. There were so many people that couldn't come and friends of ours, so it'd be much better this year to see everyone, and
it's going to be wonderful. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Awesome. So that's it. You got anything else? Well, is that it? Is it? Are we wrapping this thing up?
Go Cowboys!
Football slash Content Marketing World special episode is in the books.
Yeah, that we will of course be back with our regularly scheduled programming next week, of course. But in the meantime, there's not really a lot of show notes to go look at for this particular episode. Hope you enjoyed it. But of course, you can always go dive into any of the other 340 episodes that are previous to this. You can just get on over to our website, won't you? thisoldmarketing.site, where you can see our smiling faces and download anything that you want to download. Remember to hashtag us up with the Twitter questions. We always love that, of course. Hashtag us with thisoldmarketing. And until we see you next week with our regularly scheduled news chuckleheadedness, just remember, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week after